in his presentation.
Even if she wanted to volunteer, it's illegal.
Right.
Well,
You can't, here's another scenario, which I have coming later on, but since we hit on this. We can't say to a person, you are only allowed to work these hours, you must punch out, because I don't want to pay overtime, or I've only budgeted for 20 hours a week, and so you must punch out and then expect them to work off the clock, or volunteer off the
I'm
clock.
talking about
No, I'm
executive.
just using that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I share that is I know that has happened sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And we want to make sure that does not happen.
But like if she's a Sabbath school leader, let's say, and
Yeah.
she can't copy stuff for her class without being paid?
Once again, we'll have to work through that.
Oh, okay.
Now, here's one thing that I did ask the General Conference Legal Counsel, because I was in some meetings dealing with teachers this last August. And so a number of us said, well, what about an elementary teacher, right, who also serves as a Sabbath school department leader or helper? Do they then have to be paid? And his response to that was no.
Oh, okay.
Okay. For Sabbath school.
Yeah.
Right. We're a teacher. Okay. Let's see. We have some benefits now. And I'm going to ask somebody if I can glance. In section 3 of your notes, section 3 of your notes, it lists not all of the employee benefits. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a question? Yes, Robin? Yes. Right. Right. If they are truly independent contractors. Pastor Steenberg will be talking about that classification too. Okay, I think it's section 3, right? It talks about benefits. These are not all of the benefits that we offer through the Central California Conference and North American Division, but they are, I'll say, the major ones. And the first one I've listed there is health care. Is that correct? Okay. So health, and the reason why I put that first is because it's probably the most expensive for us to consider. Okay. Let's see. Now, what will happen beginning July 1 is that health care will be available for all, I believe it says all full-time regular employees, right?
Yeah.
So that's hourly as well as salaried, full-time. Even if a person is getting minimum wage and the local prevailing wage is minimum wage, if they're working full-time, then they will be receiving health care. Dr. Steenberg will also be talking about the financial responsibilities of that as well. I give him all the tough things to work on, but we'll tell you about that. Let's see, there's also, okay, with healthcare, when we said it's full-time, what did we say? It was for hourly, it's 38 hours. For salary, it's 38 hours plus at least 75% of the Central California Wage Bank. That's what will happen effective July 1. However, the Affordable Care Act, we're being told, beginning in July 1 of 2014, the criteria moves from 38 hours, which our conference has set that, that criteria will move to more than 30 hours. So beginning July 1, January 1, 2014, anyone on a regular basis working more than 30 hours a week will be accounted as being eligible for benefits for health care. So that would be important, yes.
Don't mean to get into politics here, but this is Obamacare?
This is the Affordable Care Act.
So that means that if the political situation were to change, this may change as well?
It may, but it may not, because once again, some of the provisions, obviously a lot of the provisions have been ruled in order by the Supreme Court, but if Congress were to pass a new law or repeal a law, that it would have to it would depend. And the Republican candidate, I believe, has said some of the things that are currently in place he would at least like to see. So I can't say this particular one.
Thank you.
Okay, and then you see the different responsibilities. And once again, there's no coverage in terms of health care for part-time employees. We're looking at having one health care plan available for all of our employees. At least one of our conferences in our union has, for their program, they have several options. An employee could choose to have a PPO plan. Another employee could choose to have an HMO plan. Another employee could choose, they have 2 or 3 offerings. And the day may come when our conference has the same kind of offerings, but I'll still call that, for tonight's sake, one plan, even though there may be more than one options. Some of our high schools have chosen to go off of the conference plan for some years, and I think I truly understand the rationale for that, because once again, when I was pastoring in Modesto, our system has treated high schools differently than elementary and junior high campuses. Whether you're aware, I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but it truly has. When I look to Mr. Richmond, you're still the board chairman of Mountain View? Yes, okay. So Mountain View Academy, whenever they get a new teacher, they have to fully fund the moving costs, the health care costs, the retirement costs. They fully fund that. If you're teaching at Miramonte or at West Valley or at Foothill, that's not the case. The Conference Education Department pays for moving and will, within its package, pays the responsibility for those other costs. So what we're looking at for those on the high school campus, our conference has not taken an official action yet, but I think it's leaning towards this way of saying something like, we want all of our employees to be in one package, but we will not hold the high school campuses, I'll say, hostage, accountable for catastrophic loss. That has been the reason, the primary reason that the academies, because they have been, a teacher on the academy system has, or the academy has been responsible for a catastrophic loss, where if a teacher in the elementary section has, that campus has not. So we're wanting to try to treat our campuses with a similarity, with equality. We're looking towards this, but as I say, it has not yet been voted. And once again, we'll certainly be open for dialogue of how best to do this. But I hope that's good news, that if we do move this direction, that the academies would not be held for that huge expense. Retirement benefits, you have the notes there. And let's see if I can remember correctly. Effective July 1, all full-time employees will have the employer basic and the employer matching. Those that are not full-time will be available for only employee matching if they contribute. Now, here's the one exception would be beginning in July 2, all employees that deal with preschools, early childhood education centers, will not be eligible for retirement benefits. The rationale for that is we're being told throughout the division that most preschools do not provide, even outside of Adventism, do not provide this benefit. And we're also wanting not to price our parents out of, and our preschools out of existence. Because if we do have some that would be eligible for health care, and then retirement, that might be too much financially. So that's some of the rationale for that. Okay, just mentioned that. One payroll center. This would Let me see here. In this area, I'm going to look to Mr. Meyer. My understanding is that the Central California Conference has been doing payroll for Mountain View. Yes, okay. Right, we're not going to be taking care of bookkeeping and payments and everything, other than just making sure that the employees, in terms of all the payroll things, go through Central California Conference. So this area, you won't see a change, but there could be other areas where our high school campuses, who have been a payroll center, will now move into the conference payroll center. We don't have yet, once again, Pastor Steenberg will mention how each employee will, for those that are hourly, will need to report their time. And so we have to best figure out how we can do that from the various churches and schools so that we don't have to have a lot of duplication of entering the data. We also look at the more likely than not, the possibility of having, through Pastor Steenberg's department, an employment committee. And it may have to meet once a week. You will be asked to do screening. You will ask to be doing interviews for your potential candidates. But then once you're wanting to make a recommendation, you'll forward that information to Pastor Steenberg's department. And then because the conference is the employer, we will then ratify your decision. But we want to have, record, we need to have record of that. So that's a little bit of what that is about.
Pastor,
Yes.
you said earlier in the meeting, I was there earlier, that any employees that are considered employees, even on local church basis, that all the money should be being distributed from the one payment center in the conference.
Right, correct.
That's their in-between contract.
Correct. Now that should be pretty much the current system here. Because back in, I think it was 2005, our conference had asked each church to send the payroll information to Clovis, and then they would pay Clovis, and Clovis would issue the check and pay the taxes and so forth for that individual.
That is correct.
Right. So, yes, but that's how, once again, how the system will be working. Okay, we're going to, Pastor Steenberg will talk about, once again, in terms of classification and how we will need to adjust and make sure that the person is appropriately classified. We'll have you determine the employee benefits, and once again, you'll understand the financial impact. One thing, let me go back. One thing that we want to make sure is a number of our area meetings are asking, does the conference have that much cash available to be floating? And the truth is, no, we don't. That's why we're going to be needing payments from the schools and the churches on a timely manner, so that our cash flow is not negatively affected. What this conversion is not, it's not a mandate to eliminate locally funded employees. I'm not going to Pastor Cologne and saying you can no longer have locally funded employees. If the church feels, in order to best fulfill its mission and has the financial responsibilities and pleasures to do so, amen, brother. And the same with the schools. We're not saying you cannot have them. By no means you can. Another thing this plan is not, it's not a reason to grandfather currently locally funded employees in inappropriate classifications. Well, Pastor Ron, we've been doing it this way for 20 or 30 years. Yes, we understand it starts in July, but can't we grandfather? And the answer is only if it's the appropriate classification. And if it's not, then we have to make the changes. The plan is not an opportunity to ignore the locally funded employee issues by refusing to participate, saying, okay, I don't like what you're saying, and I'm just going to ignore it. That's not what the plan is about either. We're wanting and needing your participation and insights. Pastor Steenberg will talk about independent contractors. Robin mentioned that, so we'll talk a bit about that. We'll also talk about dangers of most classifications. We don't want to classify locally funded employees as part-time but expect full-time work. I'll talk a little bit about that. Or schedule part-time employees for full-time work. Or accepting full-time work on a regular basis from a part-time employee. Now, it can happen on an occasional basis. You may say, okay, I know you're only scheduled to work 20 hours a week, but this week I need you to work 30 hours. And if you are the supervisor and you have permission from your finance committee or your church board for special events to do something like that, that's fine. But on an ongoing basis, you want to make sure that they're staying within your parameters, your budget. And then once again, here's the one thing which was a question earlier. The last one, allowing part-time employee, or even if it's a full-time employee, but a part-time employee to volunteer after hours to avoid full-time status. We can't do that. Okay, I'm sure you have questions. And Pastor Steenberg will give his presentation. You can ask questions during that as well as after. Let me introduce to you Pastor Steenberg. Pierre Steenberg serves as our Vice President for Personnel and Human Resources. He has 2 earned doctorates. He came to our conference holding a PhD. He easily could be a professor at one of our Adventist colleges in the religion department. Easily could be doing that. For the last 9-10 years, he has served as pastor for our Hollister Church. Just last year, he earned his 2nd doctorate, which is a Doctor of Ministry degree. It's a professional degree. He also is a board-certified Christian counselor. And he has been invited to go and hold different seminars, either in parenting or family enrichment. And if I'm not wrong, is it this coming Sabbath? This coming Sabbath. Although we're traveling all throughout the conference, Pastor Steenberg comes back to this location, to this very church campus, to do a seminar for that. Pastor Steenberg also is our liaison to our insurance company, particularly when it deals with liability issues. He also is our liaison when it comes to the attorneys, once again with liability issues. So we have been blessed by his ministry in pastoral ministry and now helping us as part of our administrative team. I'll turn the time over to Pastor Steenberg.
Thank you.